Mr. Chairman, permit me, to say that the responses, especially being under oath, and that I'll be making, will strictly be guided by the issues that you have raised. And I still equally want to seek your indulgence to, like I said, yes, I understand that you probably will give the Commission extension of time in respect of the facts to reproduce and all that. But we've endeavored as a Commission to respond to the issues raised. We have, if I remember, 35 issues that you have asked us to respond to, and we've endeavored to respond to those issues to guide the committee in the course of this investigation. So the first 6 of the questions, that is questions number 1 to 6. Yes. So if you permit, Mr. Chairman, I will read the question and provide the answer as a rule of engagement for clarity. Yeah, so the first question that was raised goes thus: were you as an individual previously a member of any presidential committee or committees on crude oil theft in Nigeria? And if in the affirmative, please provide the following: details of your status in the committee and the agency you represented when the committee was or were constituted, and members of the committee's terms of reference, certified through copy, and that. Mr. Chairman, in just the answer, my answer to this is that yes, I recognize, that there have been 3 presidential committees set up, on this issue. By 2014, there was a presidential committee to investigate crude oil theft in Nigeria, and I had the privilege to serve on that committee. But the terms of the committee was not about was not tagged, was not about investigating 48 million stolen crude. The broad term of the committee was, thrust of the committee was to investigate crude oil theft and make recommendations to the government on how to abate that. So I had the privilege of serving under that committee, and the report was submitted. Incidentally, by the time the committee was finishing its task, it was about the transition period like this. So I guess the outcome of the report of the committee was submitted as part of, submissions to the transition, that was the incoming government. That was that. But relating to the specific issue of the 48 million barrels of crude oil stolen, that is a committee was set up, to the best of my knowledge, but I wasn't a member of that committee. That is my response, Mr. Chairman. And I was not privy to the sitting of the committee, and I was never invited to appear before the committee, and nothing was communicated. Nothing was communicated to me. So for that reason, my humble submission is that since I was not privy, I did not have insight into the activities of the committee. And for that reason, I'm unable to avail your committee with the report of that committee because I did not have answer to it. I did not have access to it. The second question is, did above-mentioned committee visit China or any other location around the world during its investigation to identify Nigeria's crude oil cargoes likely to have illegally been exported abroad or which were unaccounted for? And did the committee make any such discovery? If in the affirmative, please provide details of members of the committee who visited China or any related locations, the type and quantity of crude oil cargoes discovered, the calculated cost of these cargoes at the time, the location and storage facility the cargoes were stored. Permit me, Mr. Chairman, to just permit my response. That is in question 1, because I was actually not privy to the activities of the committee since I was not a member. So for that reason, again, I could not give your honorable committee insight to the activities of the investigative panel or committee that visited China. So, and I'm making this to the best of my knowledge and given the fact that I'm under oath. So to today, I was never privy, I was never a member, I was never invited, and I really don't have knowledge of the activities of that committee.
Okay, sorry, CC, sir, before you go to question 3, just a few clarifications. So for the 2014 committee that you were a member of, are you privy to the report of that committee? Because if you see the current purview of our investigation still covers 2014, and it is possible you might have information from your investigation then that will be of benefit to us as well in coming to a conclusion about whether or not there have been anomalies in the proceeds from our crude. I don't know if you are privy to that report of that committee.
If it is possible for your honorable chairman, I would request that you grant me indulgence not to discuss the outcome of that committee report here, given the fact that it was a committee set up by the government, by the federal government. The outcome, the report of that committee belongs to government, and neither member of the committee, was allowed to take a copy. So I don't really have permission to, discuss or disclose the outcome of the report of the committee. And I want to graciously suggest that if it becomes very important for the committee to have a copy, maybe a request could be made to appropriate organs of government. I will seek the protection of Mr. Chairman in that respect. I was just a member of the committee. Thank you.
So it is responsibility we know we have, and what we also can accord you the privilege of is to be able to make any such disclosure behind closed doors. So now if it's something of a classified or sensitive nature, yes, we are not unmindful of the fact that certain decisions that government takes are not things that sometimes we as representatives of the people should be making public until we understand the import of what that information is. So I would want to say that in terms of ability to receive the information, yes, we're statutorily allowed to receive information, which I believe your legal counsel, your secretary is here, can advise you accordingly. But with regards to making that presentation publicly here, yes, we owe you the benefit of doubt. We can decide that this information be provided behind closed doors, not before the camera.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, you will agree that as a very senior public official, I'm under oath of service not to disclose information to unauthorized parties. But for me, it's not a very serious issue. If you permit, we are all Nigerians. I'm a very patriotic Nigerian. The information for me at the end of the day will be public, and you are empowered as a committee, as an organ of as an organ of government to make I'm sorry, please permit. As an arm of government, I'm an arm of government. I'm sorry. As an arm of government, permit my slip. But you have all the powers as an arm of government to make a request for the whole report. That's, if you permit, no problem.
Whenever committees are set up, whether investigative committees or otherwise, I know that at the end, it is always set up, and at the end, there's always a formal report of that committee. And in most cases, the formal report of the committee is always made public. Mr. Chairman, I think for me, we have to be guided by the discretion we give to agencies that appear before us in terms of the protection we give them, so it doesn't look, so the public, the general public, don't feel like there is something we know that we don't want it to be brought to the public. So if, for the purpose of this investigative hearing, if there is any information that ought to be disseminated, if there is any report that has to do with illegal crude oil sale, whether at home or diaspora, that any of the agencies in charge that have that fiduciary duty of care to Nigerians, I mean, Mr. Chairman, we should be able to allow it to come to the public, because the essence of investigative committees for the general public to know what is happening. So when they come under that protection and we now give them that protection, I think the essence or the onions of the committee will be withered. That's my own personal opinion. So what I'm trying to say, Mr. Chairman, is in the course of this investigative committee, if there is any information that is deemed necessary, it's not the agency that will tell us the information that is relevant or not, or otherwise. It is the investigative committee that has that powers. Theirs is to respond.
Yes, by the powers conferred on us by the Constitution, especially Section 88 and 89. And for the mere fact that the Chief Executive Officer, let me put it that way, admitted that it was part of the 2014. The chairman, as you said, that we owe them and he himself a duty of care. The powers conferred on us in this country under that constitution is unlimited. And I want to say, without missing words, and due respect to Honorable Ifeanyi, that at any time we can ask the executive for that document, and they must, under compulsion, submit it to us. Aside that, the Act on Freedom of Information was Act of the Parliament, and it still subsists till today. So even if we want to compel them that they have to publish it, if they have failed to do so, it is still within our powers. And I would just want to say that for now, so that we can, going forward, we allow this side of his own case to rest while we activate the process of obtaining the document officially. And if it needs now be that we need to summon him before us, to invite him, sorry for using summoning, invite him to still come and answer questions based on the information on that document before us, I'm sure it's under compulsion to cause appearance.
Honorable, please, with regard to this issue, I'm going to give a ruling so that we can proceed, please. Thank you. There's some clarity we need to put with regards to this issue. The CCE was not the CCE at the time he was a member of that committee. He was a member of that committee in a different capacity. So we are not holding him accountable for his stewardship as the CC in that regard. So let's put it in the right perspective. He was a part of that committee at that time and was not the chairman of the committee. So it is possible he also did not have privy to the report. He might have information about the report, which we will engage him privately about, but like Isiaka said, it is an official document. If in the course of the preparation of that and conclusion of that report it was not made public, it can be part of our recommendations at the end of our investigative hearings and at the conclusion of the mandate of the House that that report be made public. So I want to crave your indulgence, honorable colleagues. As a committee, we will request formally, officially, from the relevant authorities for that report to be provided to the committee. And with regards to the CC personally, we will engage you, separately with regards to that issue. So, Honorable Johnson, the chairman has ruled regarding that issue.
No, it's not that.
Do you have another issue regarding that committee? No. Or is it another issue entirely?
You being the head of the place, whether former or present, you cannot sit before us and say you are ignorant of certain action that we are taking when you were not the head. This response to question number 2. That you were not the head then does not mean that there are no facts before you in your office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll go on with number 3, sir. Thank you.
Please provide details of who approved the sale of these cargoes, when and where they were sold, who sold the cargoes, who were the crude oil cargoes sold to, how much were they sold for, and which banks and accounts were the proceeds from the sale of these crude oil cargoes paid into. Mr. Chairman and honorable members, the question number 2, just detail, same with 4 and 5. We're all talking about the issue of China crude oil cargo, to which I responded that, being on oath, that I had no knowledge of any of this. I have the obligation to tell this committee the truth and nothing but the truth, especially being aware that I'm under oath. I wasn't. Thank you very much, my honorable. Honestly, I just had no knowledge of all this.
At the time these things were allegedly said to have occurred, what was your position then, and in which agency, sir, in 2015?
For clarity, Mr. Chairman, sir, and your honorables, specifically, between the period 2014 and May 2015, that is between January 2014 and May 2015, I was on the desk. I was the head of crude oil marketing division of the NUPRC as the group general manager crude oil marketing. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. So, but with regards to this specific issue of 48 million barrels of crude, you did not have any knowledge of what the committee that was set up discovered, or whether they discovered any crude when they went to China?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, for that period of time, my responsibilities were clear, cogent, and specific. did not involve the issues raised. I was not a member of the committee, neither the committee invited me in any regard, formal or informal. I was never engaged, and I can again affirm that I was not in any way privy to the activities and the outcome of the committee's activities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would affirm before the committee that after I had left the seat for another responsibility, of course, like any other Nigerian, I read in the media there was a committee set up, and that is to the extent I was aware of my knowledge. Thank you. A cargo is usually in the neighborhood of 950,000 barrels, plus or minus 5%. And when you look at that, it should be correct to say 48 million barrels amounts to 48 cargoes for VLCs.
Okay, so in your own experience, sir, especially having headed that department, is it possible that 48 cargoes would leave this country to a foreign destination and be sold without the monies being remitted to the country?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, on oath, honestly, strictly based on my experience in crude oil sales marketing department, it's almost absolutely impossible for that kind of situation to have occurred, at least against the processes and procedures that guides crude oil transactions in Nigeria. It is almost absolutely impossible. I can say that.
Are you familiar about the requirement for even crude oil exports to undergo pre-shipment inspection?
For the purpose of providing information before this committee, even though I left crude oil marketing almost a decade ago. The processes and procedure, Mr. Chairman, for crude oil sales starts from eligible bidders putting in their bids to participate in off-taking, legitimate off-take of crude oil, that is a federation entitlement in the different fiscal arrangements that are sold. The process usually is preceded by advertisement, and eligible bidders put in their applications. The process is usually very competitive and transparent. At the end, a list of eligible bidders that fulfill the terms that are prescribed are shortlisted, and express approval of government is obtained. That is the Minister of Petroleum is obtained, and on the basis of that, official selling price are set in accordance with the procedures, and again approvals are obtained for the official selling price, which is usually called the OSP. On a monthly basis, there is a meeting that normally takes place called curtailment meeting. At that curtailment meeting, the federation entitlement in the various fiscal arrangements are determined using the economic models that are used to determine that. And once that is done, the available volumes are made available for allocation to pre-approved off-takers at pre-approved prices. And on the basis of that, the available volumes are allocated in cargoes to these pre-approved off-takers. And it's instructive to note that the pre-approved off-takers are not allowed to fix vessels to our terminals until there is a confirmed LCs put in place. And these confirmed LCs, of course, represents evidence of prepayment before the crude, the cargoes go to the terminals to load. So payments are made based on those LCs. And it is on that, the confirmation, that necessary permits for loading with the shipping documents are granted. And as it were, I know that in the terminals, perhaps Nigeria probably should boast of maybe the largest plethora of agencies that are present at the crude terminals to witness cargo loading and before the cargoes are allowed to sail. So I'm drawing from my knowledge of crude oil sales and marketing in Nigeria in a legitimate manner.
Okay.
Be it I left probably more than 8 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much, CC, for your clarification. But fortunately, and we appreciate the government for trying to ensure continuity of institutional knowledge, now you're privileged to be heading the regulator of the industry. And remember, the mandate of the committee 2014 till date. So with regards to crude oil exports currently under the PIA, are you familiar with the requirement for pre-shipment inspection and for export proceed forms, NXP forms, to be provided by all those exporting crude from the country? Or what is the process at the moment?
My response was, has to do with a pre-PIA environment. Now, post-PIA environment, and specifically as it relates to the Commission, since the department that is still saddled with entitlement, federation entitlement determination, and the marketing of the federation molecules from the various fiscal arrangements, are still saddled with the now National Petroleum Company Limited. I think that matter could better be referred to them. However, the PIA expressed the Commission, that is the NUPRC, to be saddled with issue of pricing, because what the PIA happily has done is to separate the commercial functions and place within the within the National Petroleum Company Limited, that is the commercial function, and separate the regulatory functions. So the Commission is saddled with the responsibility of regulatory functions, and pricing is adjudged part of the regulatory function. So the Commission is now saddled with setting official selling price, which is purely a regulatory function. So it's one of the good things the PIA has done, providing checks and balances. So the Commission has set up a department, a unit, to take over the OSP setting under the PIA environment.
Tax oil, cost oil, profit oil, quantities of crude that are communicated to you based on the JDA on each field, you are privy to that, you're provided with that information?
Yes. Yes, and I think there are some aspects of the question that are raised that, and we made data available in that respect. Yes. Because, of course, we are saddled with computation of determination of royalty, revenues, and all that. And there are aspects of your question that raise specific questions in that respect, Mr. Chairman, and we answered them.
Okay, so but regards to quantities of the crude, you received that information from the company, the operators, or the company, or both? The quantities of crude, because obviously there has to be a particular quantity per cargo of crude that is lifted and exported, for which you are now calculating royalties or whatever is due to the government, and even pricing based upon.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that borders on the statutory responsibility of the Commission. We have line of sight on the net crude volume upon which royalties and taxes are based on. Now, we provided all those information. Yes.
Sorry, because what the committee and my honorable colleagues just want to know is that information, do you get it directly from the fields, from the wellheads, or does the company give you this information? Or do you have your own personnel who confirm these quantities as well as they are being lifted and exported?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Commission has its representative at the loading terminals in the country, and in this respect, with your permission, I will yield to our Director of Development and Production, whose department is responsible for that, if you permit, so that you equally get its own perspective. Thank you.
It is a general knowledge that before a single barrel of oil, either through SPM or loadout stations anywhere, you always have your personnel with the keys to those export terminals. Is that correct?
Thank you so much, Honorable.
No, just answer me first. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
To the best of our knowledge, too, God forbid, if your personnel at the loadout station should die, God forbid, you must die with that key. Is that correct?
Okay, so in every terminal, we have more than one person.
Okay.
So
now,
even if it's not localized to it.
That's okay, sir.
Yeah.
That will now lead me to my question. Because that is what we've not been able to separate before now, and is giving a lot of issues. If you man the loadout terminals, and I want to use the joint venture between NNPC and ExxonMobil as an example, at 60-40. When it is the turn of Mobil to take the 40%, they send their own vessel to lift. When is it turn for NNPC? NNPC will send vessels to load the 60 separately, and they are not connected. Am I correct with that?
Yes, you are correct.
Mr. Chairman, that is what we have not been able to separate, and that has been creating a lot of issues for us. That's the IOCs and that of NNPC. They live separately where the joint ventures are concerned. And as long as we continue to probe or investigate that of the IOCs, the IOCs, they have no direct control on what NNPC takes about their own portion of the 60%, except the deductions which the IOCs always transfer to them. Now, sir, what we want, with due respect, Mr. Chairman, within this period we have said, so that we'll know where to point our fingers, what either the national producers, how do you call them, the IOCs, and then we have the other nationals. And again, vessel nominations, you help us list them out, because it is the IOCs that normally nominate their own vessels. I'm sorry, the NNPC will nominate the vessels that will take their own products. And except the fact that this investigation is not extending to what they do with the lifting when they take their 60%, or as the case may be, because it's not general. That's a joint venture, the PSC, the production sharing contract, and etc. So if you can mandate them to separate the two for us within the period under this probe, we'll actually get to our destination on what we are looking for. If we continue to lump both together, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, we may not really get what we are looking for, sir. Thank you very much. So you can move the motion. They should separate the two. Because DPR, I will still call you DPR. Anyway, I'm a lawmaker, so I should move up to date. The commission, you are still at the center and pivot of the whole thing we are looking for. And no one has been convicted yet. We are only, it is alleged, as we claim. But to get to our destination, we want you, I move, Mr. Chairman, that the commission from the inception of at 2014 to date should separate all the liftings in this country, those that belongs to the NNPC and those that the national companies and IOCs have lifted out of this country, and they are part of the destinations, together with the this certificate. What's that certificate?
Stock certificate?
Stock certificate. So with that, it's not only Nigeria that is producing, even in this Nigeria and West Africa here, we know how many countries. So if we say we have oil in China, maybe they actually came from another country, but we want to know where our own are deposited. We want to trace it, and that's the only way we can trace it. So I so move, Mr. Chairman, that they should separate the two and their source certificates respectively. They should not tell us they have no. There is synergy among all the coordinating agencies. So I so move, Mr. Chairman, that they should give us that information. Thank you.
Okay, so those in support of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So, CC, sir, please take note, Director, sir, to provide us with separate records of the crude lifted for the company and the country, separate from that lifted by the operator, both IOC and the local Nigerian companies, and any other such lifting on behalf of the country.
Very careful not to make assertions I wasn't sure of. I know that we provided it, but I wasn't specifically sure if it was separated. But I mean, a member of my management team is confirming to me that it's actually separated what we submitted. But we will check. If it's not separated, we'll endeavor to separate it. But if it's separated already, we'll report to you that it's already separated.
Are you aware of whether there are, as a regulator, do you require from each operator or concern that lifts and exports crude, do you usually require a storage certificate at the location, or a stock certificate? Do you usually have knowledge of who the end party is that procured the crude from whoever exported the crude, are you usually privy to that information? Is it information you request for?
From my experience, within the time I was on seat, the crude oil marketing, and even for the commission, the off-taker, once the seller, now the crude oil marketing department ensures that the LC is confirmed for the approved quantity. The off-taker, has the responsibility to, that is to market the quantity that has been paid for. So the requirement for the end buyer, that is the ultimate end buyer, wasn't in practice.
Okay, so it is still not in practice under the PIA. So let me put it in the right perspective. What my colleagues are asking, it is a concern to us that it appears as a country we have no visibility of who our crude is sold to or the destination where it's taken. Once we have LC confirming what we believe is the reconciled figure of the crude that we say is leaving the country, wherever it ends and whatever transpires, we don't seem to have any concern about that. Is that correct?
No, I don't think so. Let me monitor out.
So if there's anyone that can help you to respond to,
no,
you can.
Mr. Chairman, let me check this. The constitution I'm having is we oftentimes there's need to monitor out-on discharge. So if out-on will be monitored, therefore the system has visibility on the ultimate beneficiary. But what I'm not very sure of, being under oath, is whether that is in all cases. But there are circumstances where out-on, when there, yes, where out-on discharges are actually monitored. So if out-on will be monitored, then there's line of sight on the ultimate beneficiary. So we'll check, that and get back to you.
Do you have in place with regards to insurance? Because for some of us who have certain knowledge of the industry, such important cargo of such value is usually insured, even as it is in transition. So what is the regulator's position and knowledge about that as well?
Yes, the pre-PIA, the defunct DPR was purely a technical regulator. But now, post-PIA, the Commission has been established as both a technical regulator and a commercial regulator. So, and we now have a commercial regulation department, and we are putting a number of processes in place. So, what on the specific issue you raise, I think is the obligation of the beneficiary owner, that is the shipper, to ensure that the cargo is insured. Yes, and in commercial, that is processes, now being a commercial regulator, all those, we equally ensure, but it's purely a responsibility of the beneficiary to ensure that, because the beneficiary has actually paid by virtue of the LC. So, and cargoes are sold in Nigeria free on board. So if anything had happened, it would have been to the tragedy of the buyer of the crude.
Anti-corruption and capital flight circumstances, I believe it's something we should have a record of as well. And as it is now, with regards to insurance, I believe we think once we have the LC, we don't really bother about insurance of the product thereafter. It's now the responsibility of whoever is buying it. So that brings us to the need for, and this is something we believe you should have a knowledge of, at least within the period under review, the LCs that are issued, are they issued to you as the Commission, since you're handling or is it issued to the Ministry of Finance or to the central bank?
Mr. Chairman, the regulator does not have line of sight on the post-PI environment, and I mean, it's a commercial transaction. I mean, the NUPRC will provide clarification in that respect.
Okay, so with regards to the LCs, it will be in possession of the company. No, that if you want copies of LCs, and that obviously that is available. That is with NUPRC. If you ask for that, that is not a regulatory issue. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay, so clerk, please make a formal request to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to provide the committee with copies of the LC issued for each crude oil cargo lifted and exported from Nigeria from 2014 till date.